Hello and welcome to One More Page. This is Julie once again, and this is my second YouTube video with a second book in August called The Year of the Flood by Margaret Atwood. The first book in this three-book series focuses around a character called Snowman. Not that kind of snowman. That's his nickname or pseudonym for his online gaming. The second book in this series, this one, The Year of the Flood, focuses around Wren and Toby, two female gardeners who live on a rooftop. And it kind of gives their history as well in a non-linear fashion. It's nice because it provides some balance. By the time I get to this second book, it's nice to have some female-centered characters, making the second book also a possible standalone book. However, there is some interplay between the two stories, and reading them back to back together made it even more rich, because I did find there is a lot of interlap between the characters, and it gives me more insight and more knowledge about the first book. I should also mention that Jimmy is actually Snowman's real name. As The Year of the Flood, the second book in the MadAddam series by Margaret Atwood, builds the story, you get a real deeper, richer sense of the complexity of the world that Atwood has made. Everything from gene-spliced animals to plants to humans, multiple different worlds within the world. It's very layered and very intricate, different names for things. She's created an entire different place for us to kind of get lost in. And at the same time, like all good speculative or science fiction, it forces you to reflect on our own world and where we may or may not be headed. One of the things that the book had me reflect on, in fact, was this notion of cults. At one point, Wren, who has lived as a gardener for for a big chunk of her life, moves back to what's called the Healthwiser compound. It's an ultra-modern, ultra-forward-looking kind of compound of scientists and their families where they live and shop and so forth. And a lot of the kids there are asking her, what is it like to live in a cult? And she's kind of taken aback, and the suggestion is that what really is a cult, because some of the behavior at the Healthwiser compound is more cultish than what Wren has experienced as a gardener living a more simple life on a rooftop. So I thought that was fascinating and really got me thinking. The other thing that I'm kind of ashamed to admit I got into as I was reading this book is, obviously, as I mentioned, they live as these kind of simple gardeners. And it's interesting because even though it's a futuristic speculative fiction, in that as they live as gardeners, it's almost like a step back in time, that they're trying to salvage a simpler life. And so I got obsessed for a while Googling and researching different what they're actually called eco-villages, and what it is people living like this, where it's almost like a commune type style living, where they've agreed to try to make a smaller footprint on the earth and kind of share and protect the land. And so a lot of these actually exist, and so I was looking them up and kind of researching them and kind of getting obsessed with the idea of this, because I thought it was just kind of a romantic idea and fun to look into. Finally, the last thing I'll say about The Year of the Flood and the Year of the Flood, the MadAddam series in general, is that for years I've said that I've been haunted by 1984, the George Orwell classic. I've had to teach it so many times I've lost count. And I constantly am seeing the similarities between our world and the world that he predicted so many years ago. And so I've been saying since I read this series, that now MadAddam series is haunting me like 1984. I think it's become its replacement. And so it's interesting. I still highly recommend this series. I rarely ever read series. I like kind of one book, one characters, because I get bored of the same characters. But this was enough variety and enough difference between the three books that I thoroughly enjoyed all three and would highly recommend them. So that's the second. I'll do another video about the third eventually. Thanks for listening. This is One More Page.